Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of the Overlay, a poker podcast brought to you by CCG Poker and Paramount Social Club. What up, Brando?
What up? You failed in beautiful Houston, Texas.
You know, I'm trying to change it up. This is 79 episodes in, so thank you to everyone who's been listening. It's funny. I used to get lots of compliments about the CCG vlog, like the weekly vlog that we do, which is basically me just reading the internet, which I always find very funny. People are like, oh, the vlog's the best. And I was like, yeah, it's awesome. Although it's like
all I did was pull up the CCG page and read it for you guys.
It's not like I'm giving new content. It's like early birds on Friday. I mean, we do explain stuff that happens, so it works pretty well and it's fun. And I like doing it. We've been doing that for what, like 4 years? 221 episodes weekly, minus the COVID shutdowns, which is about 6 or 7 months. Or I decided to do daily vlogs, which was
Can you find those daily vlogs on the internet somewhere?
Yeah, they're still up on the CCG website or the CCG YouTube page. They're under the
I can go to like
No Days of Poker
No
vlog.
Days of Poker,
Yep,
number
100%.
74.
And find out what the hell I was talking about on the 74th day of shutdown. They started out very fun and like, I'm so excited and this is going to totally work out, to like episode 158 where I'm like,
I know you were like calling me like almost dreading it at one point. You're like, I don't know what I'm going to talk about.
I don't know what to do.
We didn't do anything. I haven't left the couch. I watched 4 episodes of Tiger King.
I haven't worked in 4 months. I can't talk about my kids anymore. Although that's a thing. Like we talked about Zoom. I talked about the top grossing movies of each year in the 80s and 90s, which was actually super fun. I think that could be its own podcast in its own right. It was a blast. Looking back on it now, I'm glad we did it. It gave me something to keep my mind from going bananas during COVID, which I think lots of people needed. So it worked out well. Even through all the heartache, it still worked out well.
The heartache.
All the heartache. Anyways, episode 79. Hey, Overlay folks. But my whole point of saying that was that I used to get lots of compliments from people saying, oh, I love the vlog. I love watching the vlog. Vlog. And now it's been like a year and change and nobody mentions the vlog at all. Like, remember that one random guy that gave me a high five? And I had said in the vlog, like, if you're lonely or you need some help or you're having a bad day at poker, like, just give me a high five. Just bro walks by, doesn't say anything. He's just like, it just throws the high five up. I'm like, hell yeah. Boom. He's like, vlog. I was like, love it. So at least some people still do watch it. But the cool thing is, of late, I have been getting more people come up to me and being like, hey, I really enjoy the podcast. It's super fun. I wait for it to come out every month. We're doing about monthly schedule right now. It's a little bit harder to kind of do it. So about once a month is kind of the plan. We might get some bonus episodes here and there, but we're going to try to get one out to you by the end of the month, every month. And that's it. And here we are today, end of January, 2023. New vlog, or new podcast.
What are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about my favorite thing in poker. It really is.
I'm really excited about this.
Winning. No, that's actually not my favorite thing, because if winning's your favorite thing in poker,
we can't talk about that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if winning is your favorite thing about poker, be prepared to be just miserable every time you play poker, because it's not something that should be your favorite part. Don't get me wrong, everybody loves to win, but shouldn't be your favorite thing. My favorite thing in poker is Limit Omaha tournaments. I love a good Limit Omaha tournament. It's my favorite.
I hear you. I always get pumped for them too. I mean, they come around. They're not rather rare.
They're rare. Yep. The nice thing is that the WSOP circuit events now do at least one Limit Omaha tournament. Typically, it's in like the $600 range, which is a nice range. It's expensive, but it's not crazy expensive. Like, I played a PLO tournament at the Venetian during the WSOP last summer, and that was like an $1,100 tournament, maybe like $1,150. Like, that's a little bit higher, but that was like the PLO championship of like the deep stack extravaganza that they do during the WSOP. So it was a little bit larger event. But I love PLO tournaments, Brandon. I love them.
600 is a nice little sweet spot, because I mean, for those of you guys that don't play very many PLO tournaments, I mean, I would say that the average person is in for 2.4 buy-ins or 2.4. Everybody's re-entering usually at least once.
It's kind of don't know if it's an unwritten rule, but it is, if re-entry in a no-limit tournament is whatever the popularity is for that, like how many people in the field are planning on firing 2 bullets in this thing, the PLO percentage is significantly higher, right? Like you're prepared and kind
for
of
3 bullets every time you walk into the PLO.
I think you nailed it. I think 2.3 in the over and under, which is actually a new place that CCG will be going to in Chicago starting in February 1st on a Wednesday, over and under bar, Chicago on Halstead in Lincoln Park this Wednesday, February 1st. It's the first time you're hearing it now. I'm trying to make sure everything's good to go, but I'm like 90% sure that this is going to happen. Very excited about our Chicago events coming up once a month at Over and Under in Chicago. It's the coolest sports bar you'll ever see.
Sweet. I'm excited.
You're going to love it. Like, you of all people will love this place. Imagine any sports book in Vegas. It's like a mini sports book. They have TVs, ticker tape running things of like odds and spreads and prop bets. It's very cool.
I mean, you're hyping it up.
The setup will not let you down. It's going to be a relatively small event. I think we're doing like 4 p.m. to like 1 a.m. kind of thing. So it's like a truncated event. No early bird, because early birds are always at 2 p.m. That's kind of why we started at 4, because we can't offer an early bird. It'll be like one big tournament and mostly cash games. But again, it's this very cool environment of sports bar. Back to PLO.
2.3.
I think you nailed the over and under.
Yeah.
2.3 is like a perfect line, because I feel like most players are willing to go twice, do 2 bullets, and there are more players that are willing to go 3 times. Whereas I feel like in a no-limit tournament, there's a far less portion of the field. A lot of people are doing the one and done. And
or 2, or like, they're everyone's ready to give another rip. But in the PLO, there's more people that rip it 3 times than only get in for once. And I think it's just because the nature of the tournament doesn't allow for that.
And the nature of PLO in general, people are willing to kind of get it in on significant more draws and kind of potential hands versus, anything else.
And I think that is like, I don't know if this episode is about like the difference between PLO tournaments and cash games.
We can.
But I mean, but I think like the actual like the thing that promotes, what's different about PLO tournaments than like a cash game is, even if the math is right, like sometimes you got to fold because you got to preserve your tournament life, right? It's like in PLO, it's like, oh, well, I have a huge draw and it's 3 ways and I'm going to win 40% of the time. And that's printing money in the long run. It's like, yeah, it's true. But you're also saying 60% of the time you're going to get knocked out of the tournament here.
So if that exact scenario happens in level 12, when the re-entry portion of the tournament is over, there's a point in a PLO tournament where you're not going to get into a 4-way pot, even if you're a favorite. And again, favorite at that point is going to be 38, 39, 41%.
40% 4 ways.
Which is a sick. Yeah, if you ask me how many times you want to flip, you're a 40% favorite against 3 other players. I'm in every day for whatever amount of money you want, and let's rip it a bunch. Like I'm in. Like, that sounds great. You're getting 3-1 on your money, and you're basically like slightly worse than a coin flip. Like, that's how I think of it. That's what my PLO brain does.
Correct. That's the way I look at it.
However, in a tournament life situation where you don't have the I can just buy more chips scenario, that comes a little bit different. So I like that.
Yeah, I think that is like probably the hardest thing about a PLO tournament, because you're right. If it's level 3, this is how everybody gets in.
This is how you get your 3 bullets
tournament,
in.
3 bullets in, because I mean, you're going to get it in, and you're going to get it in with the correct equity and the correct math. But I mean, you're going to get eliminated 65% of the time, and you got to be okay with that, and just sack up and be like, all right, I missed my draw, or whatever. Or I had top set and I didn't hold against all the draws I was up against, and get another seat. But when you're down to 2 tables and you have a good seat and there's fish to your right and the blinds are high and you still have a decent amount of chips, maybe you just pass up on that spot because you can find a better spot in the future and you don't want to get eliminated with 20 people left.
I feel like that's kind of like the biggest thing between PLO tournaments and cash games, which I think is mostly what we're going to try to discuss. I mean, obviously we'll throw in some like differences between like a no limit tournament and not, because I mean, you got to remember the fact that like Omaha is a smaller subsection of people who play poker in general, right? Like Omaha's a smaller field, and then you take that smaller portion of the poker kind of economy, and then you throw the tournament aspect in it. There are many PLO cash game players that don't even consider playing a PLO tournament, like never. Correct?
Yeah, right. Because I
like
think
the
that
Marcos of the world, those guys aren't playing fucking PLO tournaments.
Correct. You don't really have any PLO tournament pros. They're just cash game players that spill over and play PLO tournaments when PLO tournaments happen.
Maybe
but in No Limit, you have your own, separate huge subsection of
just
cash only, tournament only, and then you got your guys that do both.
The hybrids.
PLO, it's basically all hybrids because that's the whole entire player pool has to come from the
cash
PLO
game side.
Cash game guys that want to just play a tournament.
You think No Limit tournaments were like this at some point, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, like going up until that section, like back in the day, like in the 70s and 80s, like all the tournament players were cash game players that just spilled over into like, oh, we're going to do this World Series of Poker deal and play $10,000 with like 40 guys. And it was just a way to make a big score in kind of a different way, right? Like Omaha's kind of like a way to go back in time to see what tournaments were like in No Limit before like there were enough tournaments where you could just be a tournament player, right? Like there were no professional tournament players in the 70s. For No Limit.
You're playing a cash game, and then if they ran a No Limit tournament, it was your chance. That was only like the World Series where you can win a bracelet.
They didn't care about
challenge your tournament skills
they were playing for the idea of
the championship, I guess.
Yeah, and money. I mean, the money was good. I mean, I got to imagine if you're putting $10,000 up back in like the 70s, 80s, like when the Doyles were winning all the time. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. That would be really kind of cool to see. Go back and kind of experience that, but you can kind of experience it in the PLO tournament side. I mean, you're right. There are no PLO tournament players that just play PLO, like none.
Yeah, you can't. Like you can't be a PLO tournament grinder and go from circuit to circuit. You're going to play one event.
Just one event,
not play the like piece, and then not play the cash games.
The Horseshoe here in outside of Chicago in Hammond, Indiana, there's 14 events, and there is one for sure, the $600 one, and then there's a $400 Omaha 8 tournament, which is like Brandon and I were jokingly saying the difference between a pot limit Omaha tournament and an 08 tournament is like the difference between tennis and badminton. Pickleball's too close, but kind of.
Ping pong.
Like it's
because yes, use a racket, and yes, it's a ball going over the net. But I mean,
short of that,
a 90-year-old can be good at ping pong, where a 90-year-old can't really be good at tennis. And it's the same. It's the same. It's the same like field. Like you get 4 cards and stuff. But I mean, besides that, it's completely different. And we're talking limit compared to No Limit.
Right.
We're talking about a split pot game instead of a non-split pot game. I mean, you're talking about getting quartered and free rolled and playing for just the low and just the high. I mean, it's completely different animal than a PLO tournament where you can use the words pot and get all your chips in pre-flop and I mean, 08. I'm no good at 08, but I mean, I never grew up playing much 08.
Yeah, I didn't play much 08 either myself.
So I feel like 08 is like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like all the old school. Like I feel like 08 is like a natural progression of the Omaha version of Limit Hold'em, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. I mean, you got all the old school Limit guys that want to play 40-80 Limit that now want to play Omaha. Well, they don't want to go play PLO. They're Limit guys. They want to play 08.
Correct.
Which I never found very fun. I was never very fond of Limit anything, but I mean, I grew up in a post Limit the apocalypse. I was a No Limit only, No Limit only guy when I got here.
To age myself,
you were playing in that
when I started playing poker in my early 20s. When we would go to the casinos in Illinois at that time in the early 2000s, just when I turned 21, they did not have No Limit cash games. You couldn't play a No Limit cash game in Illinois at a casino. You either had to go to the Indiana casinos, which at that point was resorts.
Yeah.
The old resorts, not the new resorts where you remember playing HPT events at. It was the old resorts, which was the actual boats, but they didn't go anywhere. And one of them, I think when I first played, was like Trump's casino. It was like a Trump.
Yeah, Trump and resorts.
And they were right next to each other.
Room.
It was very weird. And then they opened the Horseshoe, which was slightly closer. Long story short, that was a wild time. But I used to play 5-10 limit. My favorite story I always tell is when I won a hand without a hand. I just bet the whole way. It was 5-10 limit. And I bet on the flop. I bet pre-flop. I 4-bet on the pre-flop. I bet on the flop. I bet on the turn. And I bet on the river. And the guy folded to my bet on the river. And I looked down and my cards were gone. Now, I had aces and I had flopped a set. I think I rivered a full house. So, I mean, I was playing it like I had aces. I did have aces. Well, I wasn't playing it like anything. I had aces. Problem was the dealer, I was in the 9 seed or 10 seed at the time, right next to the dealer's right hand. He had scooped up my cards at some point, and I just kept betting. I didn't know they were gone until I looked down, and the other guy mucked.
$20 river bet into 200 got him the fold.
Yep, he mucked, and I think the board paired on the river instead of, he was probably on a flush draw or something, and the board paired on the river, and I bet, and he's like, God damn it, and just like threw in his cards, and then the dealer goes to push me the hand and muck my cards, and they were gone, and him and I looked at each other, and he just gave me a shoulder shrug, and that was it.
That's the thing about limit. You always got pot odds to call.
Pot odds to call is very tough.
They always say saving one bet is like value betting on the river.
So good.
Yeah. All right. So what else in the PLO tournament world? I got one little difference, between PLO and no limit tournaments, and that, I guess maybe that's a thing in the past now, but used to be there's never any anti-pressure
Correct.
in PLO tournaments.
I'm trying to think.
That was
go ahead.
one thing. Yeah, I mean, you're good. There's just one thing that like you can think about. Well, you can fold down to maybe 3, 4, 5 big blinds. You can play tighter around the bubble, and you can play tighter when you're short stack because you don't have. Well, it used to be an ante every hand, which then it turned into a big blind ante. But any sort of ante system that you're playing with, there was never that in PLO until I went to the Elgin. The Elgin was when? In October? 3 months ago?
Yep.
And, the first level was 100, 100, 100. Or 100, 200, 200. And there's big blind ante from the get-go. So now, I mean, that really changes the
dynamic.
The dynamic and the strategy. And it's not like...
Yeah.
It's not like there's like computer software like there is for Hold'em tournaments. There really isn't. It's kind of more unsolved, which is kind of cooler. And
It's why we like playing it.
It is. I mean, there's a lot more gamble. There's too many avenues. There's too many card combinations to like write a perfect software to like solve the game, which is my whole thing about Hold'em and why I think Hold'em's dead and why I don't really enjoy playing Hold'em that much anymore. But, if there was software, that would have to be completely reconfigured now that there's antes. So, I mean, just because there's a computer that needs to be reconfigured, that means the human side, I mean, we need to figure out what that means too. And I don't really know what that means because I've never really played. And I can't really sit here and tell you, well, the difference between having an ante and not having an ante is that, this and that and the other. I really don't know the answer, but I do know that it did just change recently. And now there's a whole new set of, data points that you need to think about with the antes and how that changes your range and yada, yada, yada. And nobody's really thinking about that much anyways in a $600 PLO tournament. They're just playing their cards and, hoping to hit nut flush draws and hold a top set and stuff like that and not get coolered. But, for somebody that is, playing all the PLO events in the WSOP, that is something they need to adjust their strategy for. And something that used to be different between No Limit and PLO that is now, they're on the same plane, they're on the same level.
Yeah, because I just looked up at the Venetian, which is the last PLO tournament I played, the one I played during the World Series. Yeah, the WSOP, which, again, I think you can almost do a whole episode on that and alone and how there are so many other games going at the other, like the side games during the WSOP are phenomenal. Like that tournament was amazing and had a huge turnout, but like a perfect turnout, right? Like it was like 70 players in like
maybe like 100 players.
Yeah, 70. It might have been like 113. Yeah, you're right. Actually, I think about it, there was like, but it was a 2-day one. Like there were 2 flights. Long story short, like it was great. It was like 180 something players in this $1,100 tournament, which was a huge prize pool. I mean, first place was like 40 grand, 50 grand.
Yeah, I want to say like 50K.
I mean, that's a ton. I mean, that's great for an $1,000. When you think about it in the Hold'em standards, and this is kind of how you have to think of when you think of PLO versus No Limit. When you play an $1,100 tournament in No Limit, like it's normally like one of the main event spots, or it's a bigger tournament, right? One of the bigger tournaments of the series, circuit-wise. And I mean, you're drilling like 6 figures for first place, but you got to beat a field of like 700 people, right?
Right. Yep.
Whereas in PLO, we're fighting for a 50K prize pool, which again, it's half of a 6-figure mark, but you're going against, good Lord, I mean, a third of the field, maybe a quarter of the field.
Right. Plus, when you take into the fact that like everybody's buying in, whatever I said, 2.5 times or whatever, it's really only 70 physical people or 80 physical people that you need to beat out. I mean, obviously, everybody's going to rebuy once, and that's how you get to 170. But I mean, it just feels so much more doable. It
feels like to cash in a PLO tournament. I mean, you have to run well. I mean, that's the same as any tournament at all. But like, I feel like. Yeah, I think that's a positive. Some people would think that's a negative, that, well, it's not as much money. It's not, and that's definitely not great. I would much rather win 6 figures for my first place winner than 50,000. However, if I got to fight against, almost 700 players versus fighting against 80 players that have each bought in twice, like, that seems so much better. I mean, once you get past the registration
area, you get past the registration period, and then the blinds,
you're not far off from the money. Is kind of how it feels, right? Because
you see the room kind of clear out quicker than you think it would. It's like, oh, there's 200 people in it, and then the buy-ins close, and you start looking around, and then they put it up on the screen that there's like 81 left, and I mean that's 9 tables, and now all of a sudden it's like, wow. There's 9 tables left in this thing. You double up twice, I'm average stacked with 3 tables left. And, it just feels like the steps or the different, periods of the tournament that you enter, there's not that many periods. There's, the pre-registration, then there's, the get it in right before registration closes. Then there's, the part where there's a bunch of shorties and they bust. And then it's, you're near the money. That's, it. You know what I mean? And whereas I feel like in a Hold'em tournament, it's first, you get past the break or you get past the registration period. It's all right, now I just need to double up 3 times and hang out for 6 hours. And then I'll enter maybe the bubble period. Whereas the PLO tournament, you're kind of just there. I mean,
yeah. The bubble area does take a little bit longer, I feel like, in PLO, or maybe that's just because you get closer to it so much often. I guess so many times I play a no limit tournament and I bust, shortly after registration. I'm nowhere near sweating the bubble. But I feel like when you get close to the bubble, the tightness and the aggressiveness that is normally so extraordinary in a PLO tournament, right? Because it's just kind of everybody plays tight and aggressive in PLO tournaments. You're just kind of forced to, right? Because the blinds are going up. Nobody's, unless you got a guy who's got a huge chip stack and he's just playing his giant chip stack, right? Most players that are kind of in the middle average stacks, they're doing what they're doing. They're waiting until their spots. They get good action. They get good cards. They raise pre-flop, not a ton, but a little bit, 3x the pot or 3x the blinds. And then you get to the flop, and then that's when kind of the tournament really happens. Because so many players, unlike Hold'em, which I think is where people get into trouble with Omaha in general. Omaha, Brandon, would you say is a pre-flop game or a post-flop game?
It's a post-flop game.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I don't even care. I mean, I can't imagine there's many times you would fold aces, but I have folded aces in a tournament in PLO because I might have 2 red aces, but a 7 and a deuce, and neither one of them match, a black 7 and a black deuce. I got dry aces in PLO, and there's 3 guys in the pot. I'm not seeing a flop. I don't care if I even flop an ace. Even if I flop an ace, I'm not feeling great. Right? You got no redraws. You got nothing to play on.
I mean, in Omaha, you're trying to make flushes and straights and nuts and stuff like that. And with
pairs and sets are not a thing.
Right. I mean, pairs and sets are like, it's a luxury when you flop a set with aces. Like, more people are happy that they have aces and a nut flush draw.
Correct.
Then they want to play that hand strong. I mean, if you flop a set of aces, I mean, first off, you have to everybody probably knows you have aces already, so you're not even going to get any action.
Right.
Then if you don't flop a set of aces,
the only guy you're getting action from is the guy who's got the flush draw or the straight draw. So
you're right, the combo draw against you.
Correct.
But I do think that, part of the reason to respond, I think it gets tighter and the bubble takes longer. Because there's no antes, that might switch a little bit.
Right.
Because there's really no need to I'm air quoting here, steal the blinds as much in PLO, because the blinds are going to defend because they're going to have so much equity. Just the random 9-8-4-3 double suited against whatever your strong holdings are. I mean, you're 38%, and it's not that hard to play those type of hands. Yes, those hands get you into trouble. Yes, you're better off folding them. But I mean, it's much easier to look at 9-8-4 deuce double suited and defend in the big blind than it is to look at 9-3 suited and hold them and try and defend a big blind with that. So, I mean, I feel like people are more willing to steal and hold them because the amount of quote unquote playable or premium hands is a much smaller number. I mean, the blinds are just going to fold out on the bubble all the time, even pretty good hands.
Right.
So, I mean, they have to pick up a top whatever percent hand. We'll just say top 15% hand or 20% hand to defend. Well, that leaves 80 of those hands dead. There's a large amount of people that are willing to defend and go to a flop in PLO with any 4 cards, even if they're out of position for 2 big blinds, because I mean, you can still, it's a post flop game. So that I think discourages people from, stealing and making moves that way, because people aren't really willing to put in a lot of chips pre-flop because they don't know what the flop's going to be, because it's such a post-flop game that you end up with just folding around and you playing limp pots and blind versus blind, and everybody can kind of just wait. And then, when you hear from somebody they have an actual monster hand and they're trying to get it in and stuff like that, where it's not so much of, hey, I got a nice little rundown here, I'm going to open the button and try and steal the blinds. No, maybe you're like, I'm just going to avoid this spot because I have no anti-pressure, and I can just find a better spot.
Now, although I do believe that now most of the PLO tournaments, certainly in the WSOP, the actual series, and I don't know so much about circuit events, but I'm assuming if the WSOP makes a change at the WSOP, they're going to do it at the circuit events as well. But I do know, now that I think about it, that Venetian tournament I played in, they are playing the big blind ante tournaments, because even I'm looking at right now for one that's going on for their next deep stack extravaganza. They're playing 100, 100, 100 for the first level, which is weird in the sense of the ante does not actually count towards the pot. So when you are opening, they don't count they
don't count the actual ante in the calculation of the pot.
Correct.
Pre-flop.
Yep.
It's kind of crazy. But I do think that is one thing that, I mean, we can talk about. That's going to change, how PLO tournaments are played.
Yeah.
And I think we might actually see bubbles go maybe a little quicker now that there's antes and there's more chips to fight for. And well, now all of a sudden there's 2.5 big blinds out there to win instead of just your 1.5. I mean, that makes a difference.
Yep.
You steal the blinds 3 times, you accumulate 7.5 big blinds instead of 4.5. I mean, it's almost double.
That math checks out, Brando.
That math does check out, almost double. Not fully double.
Huge overlay tip, and something you need to pay attention to. And I don't know about other spots, but several things. One, before you go to the WSOP in the summer, make sure you have your player card, because you need a player card to register for anything at the WSOP itself. Which is what, what kind of card? MGM card? What card do I have for the WSOP?
You got a Caesars
reward card. Thank you. You need a Caesars reward card. So if you're going to play in the summer WSOP, make sure you go and get your Caesars reward card beforehand. If you're going to go play a circuit event,
Yeah, the horseshoe. Don't go upstairs
Don't-
up there and go up there and be like, yeah, I'm here. Here's my 400. And they're gonna be
Like,
yeah,
if you-
yeah. Go back downstairs to the rewards.
Right.
Get that card.
get that
and then
card
come back up.
and then go back upstairs, because it's so many times you feel bad for the guy who waits in line for 45 minutes to play the first event, gets up there and they're like, where's your card, sir? And he's like, I don't have one. They're like, cool, get out of line, go back downstairs, go figure it out, and then come back up, get in line and wait again. You just wasted all of that time. Venetian did the exact same thing, that you needed a Venetian card in order to your grazie rewards, whatever it is, because they're their own deal. Like, I had to wait in line to get it, and it kind of sucked. I waited in line for like 45 minutes. Well, when you get
I
there to
remember
play
telling you to
early,
go.
yeah, it's
to the
just
kiosk.
it is what it is. And I went to the customer service that's right across from the poker room there. So also bad idea. Go to a different one, because that one was backed up with other poker players who realized that they needed a card in order to register for the tournament. So that was probably mistake number 2. Mistake number 3 is I was in Italy the week before, and I was on super jet lag, and I went to go take a air quote nap for an hour before I played the PLO main event, and then slept through the entire registration period. That also happened.
So there's basically 4 tips on what not to do.
Right.
Just do the opposite of
Don't
what
be
Ken
jet
did.
lagged. Make sure you have your card. And then I couldn't get a Caesar reward card. They kept jacking me around because they're like, oh, you live on something street and like St. Charles. And I was like, no, I've never lived there. They're like, well, that's what it shows. And I was like, I promise you, I've never lived in St. Charles. Like Aurora, yes. Chicago, yes. All of those could be a possibility. Maybe even Naperville. I lived in Naperville for like 1.5 years after college. Maybe an old Naperville address. But never in the history of my life have I ever lived anywhere else except Aurora, Naperville, or Chicago. Like, that's it. Those are the only three towns I've ever lived in my whole life.
That's what about in college?
Yeah, but I never had an ID from Mississippi. Like my Mississippi license, I never had a Mississippi license. I had a Chicago license. Like it was my parents' address. I was living in Mississippi, so that's totally fine. But I would have never gotten like a card
using that Mississippi
that Mississippi address. Like, it's always, even when I went to the casinos in Mississippi, like Tunica and shit, my driver's license still had my parents' my address on it. So like it was always
registered as an Illinois guy, even when
always registered as Illinois. Yeah. Funny side note. Speaking of Tunica just had a circuit event.
They did,
and they had a famous show up. A famous person show up.
Who's that?
Mike Postel.
Oh yeah.
There was like a whole big thing. He was like wearing a COVID mask, so he was trying to hide his thing, and he entered as his first and middle name, like Michael Lawrence or something. And obviously that's not his real name. And it turned out it was him. Like, it was 100%.
And then he
him.
made the final table, and then he got slow rolled.
Twitter blew up, right? And then he got slow rolled. Do you know the other part of that story? Then the casino didn't pay him out.
Oh no, I think they ended up they held it because he owed court fees, but then the person that he owed didn't like file their like grievance in time, so then he ended up getting paid.
Oh, he did. I didn't hear that part of the story.
He ended up he did get paid, but they like held it. They like held it from him
72 hours or something, or
correct,
whatever it is, and then
whatever didn't get. Yeah, they didn't get the paperwork in, and then they released the money.
Seems like not a good idea.
Because I saw an article that was like, Mike Postel gets away with it this time. It's like,
that sucks. That sucks.
All right, so I can finally, we've made it long enough in the episode where I can tout that you've actually, gotten second place in one of these actual PLO tournaments.
I'm not going to lie. My PLO resume for tournaments, I have played a total of 5 or 6 PLO tournaments in my entire life. And I have cashed in 2, one being a second place at the last time the circuit event was in Hammond. I got a third place, but that's an asterisk for the dummy version. I should have chopped it 3 ways and talked myself out of that negotiation.
Oh yeah, that was an HPT. That was a great one.
That was me, my sister and I, and she got second, I got third, and then that guy got first, and him and I were big dick syndroming it up, and we ended up not coming to an agreement, and then I got busted third, so that was a big dummy move.
Yep.
And then I remember one time, I think I played 5. I've got the second place in the WSOP. I got the third place at that HBT, which are like my only Hendon Mob caches. There might be one more in there that's a no limit tournament. And then the Venetian tournament where I straight up bubbled, which kind of sucked. It is something that happens with PLO tournaments. They're always a 2-day tournament, and you kind of always get like the shitty start time. Like I know in the circuit event, I think they don't start till 5, so you have to play till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. They get close to the bubble, but then at some point they stop playing because they have to give you a certain amount of time to get back to the next day, because like play restarts at like 11 a.m. the next morning, so it's like a short turnaround time. And then when we came back at the horseshoe event a couple years ago, 3 years ago, where I got second, I think you were right. There were like 3 or 4 players that were not going to get paid out who had to come back for day 2, which is a real shitty move.
It is, and I think that,
I get it. There's nothing else they can do.
Yeah, the no limit tournaments take, obviously the chunk of the series are no limit hold'em, so they can generally have the noon start times and the 2 p.m. start times, and they can avoid that, where PLO is kind of the niche.
To throw off.
Only got 1 or 2 of those, so they start at 5. You get kind of screwed because you don't make the money on the first day. And I mean, for somebody like me, it's a 20-minute drive of the horseshoe. For you, it's an hour 10 with traffic, and it's a quick turnaround time. You got to drive an hour home. You got to get there an hour back by 11, and then you got to come and then not even make the money. That happens more so in the PLO sector than the no limit hold'em.
Yeah, because it happened to me at the Venetian tournament I played at the series. I got, I think, like 30 something paid out, and when we got back the next day
with like 50
something were left, and then I made it through like maybe 2 hours of day 1, and I was getting low. I think I had like 7 or 8 big blinds left, so like I'm in like desperation mode, and the blinds are coming around. I think I had a suited ace with 8s, like 8-7. So I had like
I think it was ace king 8-7, ace king 7-7 maybe.
Yeah, I think it was ace king.
You had a pocket pair.
Yeah, I think it was ace king 8-8, and I had 1 suit like diamonds, which isn't a great hand. But like when the blinds are coming up next, and you got 7 big blinds, and I got to put 2 of them out on the next hand, and then 1 more. Like I was like,
yeah, you're getting whacked for 2.5 with the big blind ante.
Correct. So I'm like, I got to get it in there pretty quick. So I raised, I got re-raised, I got it all in. He called, he had kings, which kind of sucked. I did have one of his kings, so I needed an ace, an 8, or some diamond runouts. And I think it was like I've turned the world.
I think you turned like
I turned like a jack of diamonds, which gave me Broadway
a
draw
and a flush draw,
or an ace or king. Yeah, I was like, all of those were good. And obviously, lo and behold, the reason why we tell this story is because it didn't happen. So I did Brick City. I'm the mayor of Bricktown, and got nothing, and just punted out. Like, I think I wasn't the actual bubble. I think when I busted, there was one more guy that was going to suffer the same fate as me. And it's not like local tournaments in Houston or in Chicago where like you get down to the bubble and there's no bubble play because everybody's just like, all right, cool. Everybody's cool with just taking out, $20 from the top. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, cool. Just pay 10th place. Yeah, great. Okay, cool. Let's go on. And then you just move on, and then that's it. The bubble's busted, and then the play goes much, 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 much faster. Whereas when you're in these bigger tournaments, when you're talking about 30 players in a room, you don't know a single soul there. It's not like there's going to be a guy, reaching out or a
organizing, be like $100 a man. Let's pay the bubble. Yeah, that doesn't happen. It's sack up, boys, because somebody's going home empty.
The other PLO tournament I played in, I know one circuit event I completely bricked. It didn't get anywhere near the money. Total bust out. The first PLO tournament I played in was that $2,500 high roller they did, and then there was $1,000 last out. I just gave $1,000 to this random Eastern European guy who was like, "Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm here all the time. Everybody knows Sven."
This is like 2009, so this is like the wild, wild west of poker.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, cool, I'm in. $1,000 last out. And I got down to the final 5, and top 4, it was only paying out 4 spots, and all 5 of us were in the last out, and my brother and I were trying to negotiate like a straight chop, and like the straight chop at that point was like 18,000 a man. And I was the short stack, obviously, because only the short stack is volleying for a chop that's a straight chop. But I mean, from my spot in 5th to first place, I think he had me like 2.5 to 1. Like, it wasn't much. And then literally that's the story where he was sitting to my right, and the next hand, he's going to be small blind, I'm going to be big blind. And I said to him, fine, you don't want to chop. What we're going to do is, if everybody folds to you, We'll just pot, get it all in, rip it without looking at it. And if I win, then we'll just chop it 5 ways, 18K a man. And he was like, "Da, sounds good." And of course, obviously, that's what he sounded like, I think, in my head. And yep, that was another brick city for Ken. That was my best coin flip.
And then they chopped it 4 ways.
And then they chopped it 4 ways. Yep, like mother truckers that they are. I was out. So that is my PLO. I've got 2 harsh bubbles. Now the bubble in the Venetian wasn't that bad because I think I was only in for 1 bullet, so I actually kind of felt like I was up 1,100. I felt like I was free rolling because I was initially going into the tournament planning on firing 2 bullets, right? And I only fired 1 bullet, so I was like, okay, well, I'm up 1,100, so I'm basically free rolling this tournament because it's half of the budget that I went for. I got a 50% off coupon, but I mean, that is the problem. When you get to the bubble, I think the bubble was like maybe 1,800, might have been 2,000 for the bubble for like last place. Like a min cash was like $1,900 or something, like just shy of 2. Which, I mean, it is what it is, but it would have been nice to get there.
Would have been nice.
I did only have to walk.
That was back. They haven't ran a 2,500.
No. Oh no, I meant the one at the Venetian this past summer.
Oh, this last one.
That one. Yeah. No, the min cash in that one was a lot higher because I think we only had like 30 actual players and maybe like 50 entries.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was in for 1 bullet on that one. That was 2008 Ken. Definitely didn't have 5K to just light on fire at a PLO table. This Ken,
that
2023 Ken, definitely.
I buried
likely.
2 bullets into that tournament.
Yes, you did.
And 1 for your sister. So
did we cross book on that one?
No.
Well, I don't know if we did. I think you were like, "Nah, you're too buried in the tournaments, and we don't want to get in on it." And then, which was fine. I mean, that's just standard practice. Sometimes you cross book, sometimes you don't.
Yeah.
I had a really good cross book in one event, but I will not admit to anything on tape.
Oh man, I wish you would admit it because you got like.
I'll do it after the series. I'll do it after the series. Well, that's it. That's our episode on Pot Limit Omaha tournaments. My favorite tournament to play in, 100%. I
love it.
You and I are both.
I love it, and they're never around, and that's what makes it so special when they come around. Cause it's almost like
I hate to break it to you.
In a weird way, it's like the main event when it comes.
It is.
It's like I don't care about this other shit. I want to play in that 600 PLO, and I want to win that tournament.
It's more fun. Yeah, I enjoy that and get geared up for a $600 PLO tournament way more than like an $1,100 or $1,500 or $1,700 main event, circuit main event, no limit tournament. Like I'm just more excited by it. Now I do have an issue here. The February 26th event, which you and I thought was PLO, they've got it written down as Pot Limit Hold'em. Think that's a misprint?
The Sunday at 5:00, that one?
Yeah. WSOP Circuit Event number 5, $600 Pot Limit Hold'em. How would they have a Pot Limit Hold'em tournament and not Omaha? You think they just did it wrong? Now, they don't have any structure sheets on there, so please don't get mad at me at Paramount or CCG because I am responsible for both websites. And I just want to go on the record saying, here it is a month before the event, and the WSOP, the largest manufacturer of poker in general of the planet, universe, of the known universe, and they have mistakes on their website all the time. All the time. It's great. Yeah, they only have the $400 08 tournament on Monday the 27th.
I swear to God, I checked the structure yesterday.
I thought it did
or
too.
2 days ago, and it said Pot Limit Omaha.
Maybe it's just a misprint. I really hope it's a misprint.
I hope so because me too. That's got to be a $600 PLO tournament.
You would think so because they've always done it and they've been doing that. Remember they used to do the $600 buy-in with $100 rebuys. Remember that?
Yeah, they've had a few different variations.
That was a weird structure.
They went down to 200s, and it was just like pew 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 pew.
Yeah, that was like a 10-bullet tournament.
Then they did. Yeah, everybody showed up there with $1,000 to play that 200.
No, yeah, I'm just gonna keep firing bullets.
And then I think it was $400 buy-in with $100 rebuys.
That might be
which
more
I find that to be a wild structure too, because then your $1,000 now gets you 6 buy-ins.
Right. That's true. And you're so motivated to just keep rebuying. And it was a straight rebuy tournament. You sat at the same table.
Correct. And they just gave you chips and you just.
Yep. And it was like.
And you could just go all in blind every hand because you're already in for 500.
The first hand, me and one of the Schrodinger twins were there. and playing in that tournament, and we convinced everybody at the first hand, just like, all right, everybody's jam it in, and then everybody will rip a rebuy. Everybody brought $100 out of everybody's holding $100 bill in their hand, and the guy's like, what? I was just, bro, it doesn't matter. Everybody's all in. Like, we're all in. Just fucking rip it. We're just flipping here. And sure enough, one guy just 9X's his chip stack, and I was like, cool. All right, let's go to the next hand. And it was such a shit show after that. Like, it was just silliness.
Well, yeah, because you already purchased these 10,000 in chips for 400, and now you're getting another 10,000 served
for $100, right?
And then you still got to kind of view it as like, if you double up to 20K, you really have two $400 stacks in front of you. You know what I mean? Like you
right
in your mind, you have $800 worth of chips in there when you double up.
Yep,
it's like I got two stacks, even though really it's not, but those chips are just in there. That's an awesome structure. That structure promotes unlimited gambling.
It promotes just debauchery.
Even more so than I think the Elgin was $400 flat, $400 rebuys. Yeah, because I brought 1,200. I ripped, lost, went home. But I mean, that's all PLO structures already encourage gambling prior to registration closing, but 400 with $100 rebuys is like nuts.
Yes.
Like, you want to talk about people just not giving a shit, because in reality they shouldn't. They need to just gamble. And I mean, you're not looking to turn your 10K to 40K and then play. You're looking to turn your 10K to 180K,
correct,
and then play. And if you get up to 70K, you're still in there. I'm still going for that 70K to 140K, because if I rebuy, it's just a hundy. I'll try again.
It's just a hundy ball. Don't worry about it.
Just a hundy ball. Don't worry about it.
Well, thank you as always for listening to the Overlay. Make sure you catch Brandon and I out in Chicago or Texas. I think both of us. I probably won't be back in Texas until March.
I'm going to Dallas. Houston, guys. If you want some Brandon monies.
Brandon's bringing his monies.
I'll be in Dallas on February 22nd.
Nice. And then turn right around and come back up for the circuit event. If my Texas peeps, I know they don't get involved too much in the circuit events, because the circuit events don't really come close to Texas. I think Oklahoma is like the closest.
Cherokee. Yeah.
And
or
Cherokee,
Choctaw, I mean.
Choctaw. I think Choctaw Oklahoma is coming up pretty soon.
That is usually that's always been the stop after the Hammond stop.
So yeah, this year it's not. So we go Horseshoe in Chicago, then the bike in LA, then they're back in Tulsa, which I think is, I guess, moderately close, considering like LA to Texas is much further. Tunica's not too terribly far from Houston, maybe like 8 or 9 hours. Choctaw doesn't happen till the summer, which is like right during the
actual
during the event. So they don't actually have a Choctaw event coming up anytime soon. That's weird. 2023. But no, they only have January through May up, so I'm sure it's going to be something in the summer again, but it seems weird. Like, it seems like it should be not, I don't know, it should be, the different time frame. But anyways, if you're in Texas, come check out Chicago. It's only a 16-hour drive, and it's definitely worth the action. If you're going to play any of the circuit events in and around the United States, Chicago's got to be top 3. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
100%
I think it's
top
like
3.
Cherokee, Chicago, and Choctaw would probably be the biggest 3.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's wild. It's a super fun event.
The LA and the Vegas ones, they have so much, I don't want to say action, but they have so much other stuff there. Right. Like, everybody from the whole Midwest, like, you got everybody coming from Wisconsin, Michigan, Indiana,
Minnesota,
Ohio,
Indiana.
Like, they're all making their way to
Missouri. St. Louis is only 4.5 hours, 5 hours. Yeah. So you get St. Louis peeps. I mean, you're getting there's so many large poker communities that play in the Horseshoe at the Chicago event. I mean, it's a big event. I would say it's probably top 2, if not the largest circuit event during the year. They always get massive turnouts. It's wild. Anyways, thanks for listening. Try a PLO tournament at your local card room or charity poker location. Other than that, Brando, lead us out of here.
Farewell, you guys. See you next week.
May your flops be live and your pots, I don't know,
be plentiful. I don't know.
Yeah, whatever he said.
For failure there.
Yep. We'll try again next time. See you everybody.